Hi, in this video, we are going to recap some of the sessions that we attended at Adobe Max. So this year, Adobe Max was a virtual conference due to COVID, and some of their designers were able to attend it virtually. And what we'd like to do internally at Impekable is to not only learn, but also share that knowledge across our team. So we have these recaps and show and tells, and this is just one of them. And specifically, it has to do with some of the Adobe Max sessions that our designers attended. And without further ado, here it is.
Again, Adobe Max was a conference that took place about 2 or 3 weeks ago. So the design team, we put together some highlights that we wanted to share with you all.
So this first one is a presentation that one of our clients, Zach, was doing, and he was talking about some of the new features with Adobe XD and how you can create, publish, and share design systems, which is pretty relevant to what we're doing for them. So we basically build design systems for Adobe for both enterprise clients that they have and also for some just like larger, more public design systems like Apple and Google Material. So we've done a lot of these, and I was excited to see what was coming for Adobe XD in terms of sharing these design systems. So they started out by talking about what an atomic design system is, and basically what it means is starting with the smallest elements and growing them out into molecules and organisms. So in the example they were showing, they started with this sort of button icon or button component and then put that into this card molecule is sort of how they describe this atomic design process, which can then be used in something that's like an organism where it might be something like this carousel. So they were just sort of explaining the principle of atomic design and how it applies to a design system. It's important because it makes components more flexible and reusable. So if down the line they decide that all the buttons are going to be a different shape or a different color, this can actually cascade sort of upward into these other elements. So they can start by changing just the button, and that's going to apply that new styling to the molecule and the organism. So this just keeps it really simple to make changes to your design system. So this new piece that they've added is publishing design systems. So it used to be that there are already libraries within Creative Cloud where you can sort of store certain types of information, like say a color palette or a set of icons. They already had this idea of libraries in existence, but now they've sort of expanded that out into Creative Cloud libraries, and you can publish an entire design system and either make it available publicly or to like your own company, for instance. And there are levels of permission. So one person or a group of people can be owners of the design system, and then other designers or anyone else can be users of the design system. So they wouldn't be able to make changes to it, but they would have access to all of the components from it. So that's a new thing that they are allowing to happen. And it could be that, you know, if say Apple or Google Material wanted to share theirs publicly, it's a matter of just going into something like Adobe XD or really any of the Adobe software and just activating it. So you don't really have to go and download a whole system. You don't have to copy pieces from a system. You actually have it sort of integrated into your software, which is pretty great. Why it's important is basically all of that, right? A small group can update the primary file and publish changes, which is also a new thing. It used to be, even if you were using a linked file, which is kind of like a design system, you could pull in components from another file. The problem there is that any change that's made to the main file is automatically pushed down to all of the other ones. So even if you're not quite finished making your changes, it could still be updating on like the other designer's end of the system. So now they have the ability to sort of hold changes until they're actively published. So if you're making a bunch of changes to your design system, you may want to publish them all at once and not sort of in progress. So that's a new change as well.
And just to add to that, this is also good for Impekable, and we've done so many of these design systems. This really leads into some things that we can offer to more of our clients.
Yeah, so the impact for Impekable, obviously, as Janet said, we do this a lot anyway. And right now, we are actually working on our own UI kit for Material UI. And the nice thing here is that we could potentially publish the kit internally, or we could publish it publicly and let others use it as well. But we would still be like the owners of the file. So we would be the only ones making changes to it. And then we can allow others to activate it or use it as we want. And in this case, we're sort of working out now the system of how we're going to roll it out and everything. And so this just adds to the ease of that transition. So it should be something that can really benefit our team as well.
I'll do the next recap. This was one of the talks, the next generation of user experience. And the speaker I wanted to highlight was Irene Au. And she led design and UX at Google, Yahoo, Netscape, and Udacity. As a yoga instructor, she really found a lot of connections between yoga and design. And I agree with a lot of her philosophy. I think I use that philosophy in my own life and work. So some similarities between yoga and design are, in yoga, you really build muscles for self-awareness, understanding, and empathy, patience, and observation. So these are all very important qualities for design. We need in design to be successful is to listen. And so I think those are great things to keep practicing and honing. Like what I just mentioned, to make that connection into design from yoga, we do listen closely to what our clients need. And she mentions kind of what keeps them up at night. And I think that's a great way to really have that empathy for our clients. And I think we at Impekable do this a lot. And that's what makes us really great partners to our clients. Another thing that she said was interesting was she actually sets an intention for designs. So I love that idea because for me, I sometimes set intentions for the day. Like if I'm having a stressful week, I'll kind of take a moment at the beginning of the day to think, what is my intention for today? And that kind of helps me with my frame of mind going into the day. And I really like this idea of setting an intention for designs and really being thoughtful before you get some work started. So that could be a great step for designers as you think about your next design workflow that you're designing. So other pieces of yogic wisdom that she kind of connects with lean UX is the core belief of people first, to really empathize and understand, and to approach problems with the beginner's mind, and to focus on the journey, to keep putting things out there. So I think, how that relates to us is we've traditionally, like very early on in Impekable, have been a bit more waterfall just because of how we've developed. We had design first and then we had engineering. And so what we're really trying to do is, move towards that more agile product development. And I think that this is really great to keep in mind. And we do get, even with outside of that, we do this a lot when we work with our clients. I think clients really value how open and collaborative we are with them. They really appreciate having that constant feedback each week and being able to be a part of the process. We've had clients talk to us about how they were a little bit worried about working with agencies because in the past they would work with other agencies who kind of just went away and then did things and then came back and shared something that was not quite in their mind. So clients appreciate that a lot about us. Other things with yogic wisdom, we appreciate that change is constant and focus on what serves us and edit out what doesn't. So I really like that. I think, we've done a lot of things at Impekable too, and we are starting to really focus in on the things that we're really good at.
For this event, they had a bunch of designers doing little presentations, and I really enjoyed Steven Sagmeister's presentation. You all probably know him. He's a graphic designer, storyteller, typographer. His studio is Sagmeister and Walsh in New York, but he is originally from Austria. And I started to say it like he would say it because his talk is very, Austrian. Yeah, so I wanted to share his talk where he shared 3 strategies for coming up with ideas. So he started by setting the context by reminding us that our brain is lazy. And when you tell it to come up with an idea, it looks for something already within, looking for neural pathways that are already existing, something that will lend itself easily to an idea. So to challenge that, you need to challenge the brain to create a new pathway. And these 3 strategies do that. So the first thing he suggested was you can pick anything at random. This idea is based on lateral thinking by Edward de Bono. So he used this strategy when he needed to come up with a logo and branding for the Casa de Musica, which was a concert hall designed by Rem Koolhaas in Portugal. So the train of thought was, well, he just looked out his window and he's in New York City and he looked at a car and he saw that the car was moving and it's always changing and the view is always different. And that sort of sparked this idea that the logo could always change. And he based it off of this shape of the building and then assigned a different color palette for each artist that was performing there. So it has this whole unique look for different events. Even each employee, I think, at the concert hall has a different color palette and shape. And he even went through this whole method of how he came up with the color palette. Like he had a picture of the artist and then he mapped these colors using some random method and then scanned that and then came up with the color. So it was very all from just looking out the window and seeing a car. So that's the video. Okay. I'll just tell you, it's a beautiful bee floating around in space. That was from the exhibit. So they used this strategy, which you guys are probably all familiar with, making a mind map. And this is based on an idea by Tony Buzan. And it's where you start with a big piece of paper, or in their case, they did this on the wall in their studio. And they started with the one idea, beauty, which is something that they had for a long time wanted to make an exhibit about. So the exhibit was showing at the Museum of Applied Art in Frankfurt until COVID. So hopefully it will come out once again when we can go to museums. But they believe that beauty is neither superficial, commercial, or old-fashioned, but is essential to our overall flourishing, which I thought was a really nice thought, that people sometimes like to think that it's unnecessary, but really beauty just feeds our soul. I mean, I know as designers and all of us here, I think, just really appreciate having beauty in our lives, and we get to create it for our clients. So the next screen shows just the example of their mind map that they created in their office. So you see, just start with the one idea, and then everyone just sort of contributed. And all these ideas were helped to form the kinds of pieces that they had in the exhibit. Like they had people using a token that they got from their tickets on the entrance to the museum to help. They just pop these out and you could vote for your favorite color. And it was just interesting. You could see then if you went around to the back side of this wall, which color was winning. And blue was winning, of course. Then they just talked about why would blue win. It just makes you think about what we associate with that color and, blue sky, the ocean, and that kind of thing. Okay, so the last one was just go take a walk. And this was based on a Stanford research study where they did this experiment and found that two teams, some sitting and some walking, they came up with many, many more ideas than the team that was sitting. And the theory just goes back to how the brain works, which I just find fascinating. One of the theories was that it allowed associative memory to be easily activated while you're walking, which allowed more ideas to flow freely. But the practical use of this is just maybe go take a walk. If you're by yourself, just bring your phone. You can start recording your ideas. And then when you get back, you can just translate them to your sketchbook. So I just thought these were neat little ideas to just break out of a rut if you just want to try something new. And I think he has one more slide where he says, how to have no ideas, do nothing. And you need to say this in a strong Austrian accent.
Awesome. Well, we have a recap by Kira.
Yes. So this was Adam Morgan's section on planning your next step in a creative career. And he kind of started by just saying that it's easy when you're in a creative industry to just sort of move from one thing to the next without necessarily having a vision for your career. And you just sort of take the opportunities that come. And then all of a sudden you realize you don't really have a broader strategy. So I thought it was good. He starts by laying out 4 kind of steps to finding that fulfilling career. The first one being defining your why, then common paths. He laid out some other examples by designers that he had interviewed with their timelines and helpful tips and milestones that they learned along the way, and then how to actually craft that path. So starting with define your why, he gave some good book examples, which I liked. I ordered How Will You Measure Your Life to start. I want to start with that one, but they both seemed really good. And I liked that he sort of said, look at your why as a compass and not a map, because I feel like it's so easy to get really attached to the nitty gritty details about I need to do this, then this, then this, then this in this order. And that's the only way it can be done. But the way he sort of framed it was reminding people that there are a lot of different ways to get to that goal. So as long as you have the goal, you're set. And then, yeah, he said to kind of start by writing down your career story in 1 to 2 sentences, really trying to keep it short, and then including where you want to go next. And I'm a big believer in manifestation and all that stuff, but he said sort of to put it somewhere where you see it every day and really feel empowered by it, and you can manifest it and put it into action for yourself. And then common paths. So this was a cool kind of I think this session is still available on the Max website too. So he kind of had 3 slides next to each other where he laid out the old version of the path, what it was, 10, 15, 20 years ago, and then where we're at now and where it could go in the future. But it just goes to show you that there are a ton of different ways to get to different places in a creative career. And there's nothing wrong with saying, I want to be an individual expert forever versus people that start as an expert, move into management, and then go toward freelance because they miss the act of designing. So you can kind of move in and out of all of these paths. And his point was just that it's not one path anymore. There's sort of these 3 tracks, so to speak, but it's easy to move between them. And then lessons and milestones. So I pulled a couple quotes out of these that I really liked. This was Laura Weimer's career trajectory. And a quote that she said that I really liked was, if you say, I did this, you are not ready. And she said that in relationship to moving into management. Whereas if you sort of are claiming responsibility for all of the work that's getting done, instead of giving it to your teammates and sort of sharing that joy, you're not ready for that step as a manager. And then the next one, I think I included one more. I'm not positive. Oh yeah, Chris Do. And I like this one. When uncomfortable in the unknown, you're learning the rules of the next step. And I thought that was good because I feel like it's just a good reminder that being uncomfortable isn't always a bad thing. It's often a good thing. Sometimes it's hard to remember that day to day. Next is crafting your path. So he gave a couple key steps: match where you're going, not where you've been. So do research and try to think about where you want to go next in your career and start to learn that language, whether that's taking classes or sitting down for coffee with people to understand exactly what's going to be needed of you in that next step. And even the semantics or terminology you may need to know, programs you may need to know, and then find your opening and sort of find a mentor that can help you get into that opening. He emphasized the importance of mentorship really early on in your design career. Learn from other paths, but create your own. And then if you find the dream, keep doing it. I think that's a good reminder for me because it's easy to just sort of be on to the next thing. You're always kind of moving your own bar for success, I guess, he said. And it's important to just sort of be happy with where you are too. So take courses and boot camps, attend conferences or free webinars. Meetup is great. Learn as much as you can and to just always be finding out what interests you. And then I thought for us internally, if we ever do things like that, to just take a design lounge or an all hands meeting and share whatever you learned back with the team so we can all kind of learn together. Yeah.
Julie, I think this is yours.
This is, and I kind of forgot I did this. So for those of you who don't know, I'm not a designer and I'm also not a creative person, but Janet invited me to listen to Adobe Max. So I just kind of put it on in the background and listened to the live stream instead of listening to music all day. But this one was so inspiring to me. So this young woman was in her last year of college, and she decided to do a project to help her sister who had been in a wheelchair her whole life, but loved fashion. And she said, how can I make the wheelchair more exciting? And she came up with wheel covers. And they're called, her sister's name is Izzy, and so it's called Izzy Wheels. And so now they have a bunch of designers designing for them. The best part of the story was, though, they have an Instagram account, and one of her pictures has the picture of Barbie in a wheelchair, and it was in the background. And that particular Barbie was discontinued a number of years ago, but Mattel reached out to her to do a collaboration. And so now they have a Barbie in a wheelchair with Izzy Wheels. And I just love that story.
So the sneaks, if you haven't seen them before, basically Adobe has, they're a bunch of mostly engineers or developers who work on fun side projects on their off time. It's not even paid time, but they do sort of whatever they want to do. And so then at Adobe Max, they usually have one session that's just the sneaks. And they're they're related to all the different softwares, but sometimes they're really high level and other times they're sort of practical and awesome. But so I just called out a few that I really liked. So the first one is the InSync sync sneak, and I swear it was some sort of dark magic, but basically what it did is made a connection between an Adobe XD file and an actual like developed site. And in that connection, it allowed the designer to essentially make design changes in Adobe XD and push those to the developed site, and vice versa. You could actually pull a link from the developed site, import it into XD, see what is on the developed site, make a change, and then push it back. So the example that they showed was like a search page. The designer didn't design a search page. The developers put one in. The designer pulls down the developed one, makes their changes, pushes it back up live, and it looks like it does in the XD file. It was really, really cool. I swear it's dark magic. I don't know how it works, but I would love to see them actually make it. You know, the sneaks, just because they show it doesn't mean it's actually coming. It's like a voting system almost. If you're really excited about it, they want you to like tweet about it and talk about it. And, you know, then they put resources behind the ones that have the most interest. So that was the first one. That was really awesome. And I also included a link to the videos in this thing, just so, you know, if you want to check it out later, you totally can. So 2D Plus was another one. It allows you to do 3D illustrations in Illustrator from a 2D design. So let's say flat buildings that you may have drawn out as like a house or a skyscraper or something like that. And then from there, it has the ability to turn that into like a 3D space and apply shadows and lighting. And they show it like curving around a lake. So they just took all of these little illustrations of houses that were all the same size and then put them into like a 3D perspective kind of, but they're still flat, obviously. So those are really cool demo, really simple one, but I don't know, I thought it was awesome. And then Physics Whiz, this, I don't know what software they were actually using. I know they have this software called Dimension that allows you to create like a 3D model of, say, like a box or a bag or something and apply your design to it. So it may be part of that. But basically what it allowed you to do is use physics to make 3D objects interact with each other. So if you wanted to build out, the example they use is like if you wanted to build out a pile of books in 3D, you'd have to like move each one of the books in like the X, Y, and Z, you know, directions in order to like place them on top of each other. But with physics, what they basically allow you to do is like drop a book on top of another book, and physics would apply how it would angle itself, where it would land, what gravity would affect it. So they showed like throwing like piles of books around or like interacting objects with each other in 3D space, which is a crazy thing in general. So that was that one. Scantastic was, I think, also using Adobe Dimension, but it allowed you to create a 3D model of anything that you have using your phone's camera. So they showed it with a sneaker, and he uses a camera to sort of like pan around the sneaker. It then turns the sneaker into a 3D object that you can use within like Adobe software. So that led to, you know, you could make, let's say you wanted to make a poster with like a 3D model on it. You could do that. And then they showed it with Adobe Aero, which is their AR software that you can use on like an iPad or an iPhone. And you would be able to then upload that to Aero, and a customer, let's say, could see that sneaker with their outfit. So it allows them to like look through their phone and see the sneaker as if it were in front of them through this augmented reality setup. So that was also really cool.
Thanks for watching the recap. If you have any questions or if you have any sessions or topics you'd like us to cover in other videos, please leave us a comment. Or if you liked any of the stuff we covered and would like more info, again, also leave it in the comments so that we can edit our show notes and anything like that. If you liked it, please hit the like button. Thank you.